Please put a like and subscribe. Honoring our teachers. The sweet sound of young children learning Torah resounded from the small one-room home in the center of the village. The children sat on old wooden benches near a log wooden table, lined with open chumashim. The Melamed Reb Aryeh Tzvi sat at the head of the table, his long gray beard swaying in the rhythm of the learning. All the people of the village loved and respected Reb Aryeh Tzvi, but it was his students who admired the Rebbe most. Reb Aryeh Tzvi taught all the young children in a small village, a quiet man who spoke little. He was never heard raising his voice in anger. He loved each student like a son and dedicated himself entirely to each and every one. The children listened attentively to Reb Aryeh Tzvi's lessons and always knew the material perfectly. If a child ever jumped around or got wild, Reb Aryeh Tzvi would raise his eyebrows and peer at the little boy. That was all it took for the boy to settle down and return to learning diligently. Reb Aryeh Tzvi served as the village Melamed for many years. Many of his Talmidim grew up, married, and then sent their own little boys to the beloved Melamed to learn Chumash and Gemara. One year, there were a few mischievous children in Reb Aryeh Tzvi's class. They ganged up, deciding that they were uninterested in learning and that they preferred to spend their days having fun. One day, when Reb Aryeh Tzvi finished explaining the material, he reviewed it with each child and then closed his tired eyes for a short rest. That was the moment the children had been waiting for. They motioned silently to each other and then quickly escaped to the large courtyard outside. Ha ha ha! Avramos laughed loudly, clearly pleased with himself. Soon the Rebbe will awake and discover that the room is empty. He'll be forced to teach the bench and table, added Itzik, joining the laughter. As they played and enjoyed themselves, they all wondered how Reb Aryeh Tzvi would recite to their prank. Let's peek through the window and see what the Rebbe's reaction will be when he awakes. Snuggled Beryl. The boys hurried over to the window and crawled around the small window. Suddenly, the Rebbe opened his eyes, looked around at the empty class in wonder, and finally spotted the smiling faces of his Talmidim looking at him. Reb Aryeh Tzvi's face immediately regained a look of pain, deep pain. Seeing the Rebbe's sadness, the children felt terrible for what they had done. They hurried back into the classroom, their heads hanging in shame. They were sure that the Rebbe Aryeh Tzvi would punish them severely. To their surprise, Reb Aryeh Tzvi spoke in his usual calm and quiet voice. "My dear children," he began, "I am not doing my job faithfully. If you boys choose to play instead of learn, then your parents are paying me for a job I can't fulfill. When you play mischievously pranks instead of learning the Holy Torah, I am earning money that is not rightfully mine." The children felt very bad to hear the Rebbe's speech. That way, they hadn't intended to hurt the Rebbe. They had just been in the mood of a little fun. However, the Rebbe didn't leave gave them much time to think about what they had done and promptly opened his chumash and continued teaching where they had left off. This time, the Talmidim worked hard to apply themselves seriously to learn and listen carefully to the lesson, but it was not before long when their enthusiasm for learning wore off, and they were back to pulling their silly pranks. Every time Reb Aryeh Tzvi was forced to waste time because of his Talmidim, he thought to himself, "This is not a kosher livelihood. I am earning money I do not deserve. Perhaps I should leave this job and become a wagon driver instead." One day, Reb Aryeh Tzvi decided to test his students' knowledge, but disappointedly, there was not even one child who knew the material well enough. The Talmidim looked sadly from one student to another with a penetrating gaze. Labish and Yosel began to cry. They were sure that this time the Melamed would punish them harshly for not knowing the material. Surely he would tell their parents that their sons knew nothing of what they had learned the past week. The Talmidim felt so sad seeing their Melamed so upset. "Children," Reb Aryeh Tzvi said, "go home and inform your parents that I can no longer be your Melamed. I will become a wagon driver instead and earn a living in an honest way." At that, the Talmidim bursted into tears and cried, "Please do not leave us. We promise to improve our behavior and learn diligently. Please continue being our Melamed." But this time Reb Aryeh Tzvi responded firmly. "I have made my decision and I will not change it," he said. "I must try my hand at a different livelihood. If I will not be successful, I will take it as a sign from Hashem that I should return to being a Melamed." With that, Reb Aryeh Tzvi bade goodbye to his Talmidim and left the room. The news of Reb Aryeh Tzvi's new job as a wagon driver spread quickly through the small village. It is a humiliation for a great Talmid Chacham. "What a terrible disgrace to the Torah," the people said. "We cannot allow him to become a small, simple wagon driver. We must convince him to continue being a Melamed." Many of the villagers tried to persuade the veteran Melamed to change his mind, but Reb Aryeh Tzvi remained stubborn. He would not go back to his previous job before trying something else first. The very next morning, Reb Aryeh Tzvi arrived at the marketplace. Several wagon drivers came to help him purchase a good horse. They examined each of the horses carefully and helped Reb Aryeh Tzvi choose a good, strong horse. The kind wagon drivers generously gave their time and taught Reb Aryeh Tzvi all that he needed to know about riding a horse, like how to pull the rings and other important rules. When he felt ready, he attached the wagon to the horse and left for the village gates to wait for people who wished to travel. Soon enough, the wagon filled up with people, and Reb Aryeh Tzvi was on his way. The following days were busy ones for Reb Aryeh Tzvi. Many of the villagers preferred to travel with the soft-spoken, hearted, good wagon driver. Then, with the others, many shop owners made use of Reb Aryeh Tzvi's service and introduced with him a large amount of money. When they heard him to purchase merchandise for them in a big city. After a short while, Reb Aryeh Tzvi decided to hire a young boy to assist him. Before the young boy began his job, Reb Aryeh Tzvi told him, "I want you to always remember that the horse needs to rest sometimes. Be sure to feed him and give him to drink often enough. And when the load is heavy, we ourselves will carry some of it. This is what the Torah wants from us." Soon it was commonly heard in the village that all other horses were jealous of Reb Aryeh Tzvi's horse. Indeed, Reb Aryeh Tzvi treated his horse as if it was a fellow human being. After several weeks in the village, the Reb approached Reb Aryeh Tzvi. "How is your Parnassa doing?" he asked him. "Baruch Hashem," he replied. "I am earning a fine livelihood. I am happy to be earning money in an honest way. It is only a shame that the horse isn't very strong and tires easily." It was weeks later when Reb Aryeh Tzvi was traveling to the city that his horse suddenly collapsed onto the ground and died. Reb Aryeh Tzvi shrugged and said, "If my horse had died, it must be that it is not Hashem's will that I work as a wagon driver. I will return to the being a Melamed and hope that Hashem will help me earn money honestly." The very next day, Reb Aryeh Tzvi returned to a small room in the village center. The children greeted him with excitement. They deeply regretted their silly behavior of the past and were so happy that their patient and loving rabbi was back. From that day on, they tried hard to have and to listen attentively to everything. Reb Aryeh Tzvi taught boys from time to time. When they would forget and some of the boys would begin to act up, Reb Aryeh Tzvi would remove the harness which he kept hanging on the classroom wall and said, "Your parents worked hard for their livelihood and pay me for their meager earnings so that you should grow up to be a Talmid Chacham. If you do not wish to learn seriously, I will go back to being a wagon driver. As I ask you to help me earn my livelihood in an honest fashion." And that was all it took for the boys to settle down once again and continue learning seriously. The end.